What is up?
Good morning, my friend.
Good morning. How's it going? What's been
Awesome.
up?
So I just took a yoga class today morning.
You took a yoga class this morning.
Yeah. I woke up at like 4:30 in the morning and then like took a yoga class at 5.
That's awesome. It was an online class.
Yeah, yeah.
Or you physically went to an
No, no,
online
no,
class?
like online class. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is this a Hoga class?
What the hell is a huh?
At the expense of sounding really sexist,
Huh.
Hoga is when a hot person teaches you yoga.
Ah. It can be technically because the person is very attractive, but I'm like not at all. Yeah.
Hey man, I just think it's a better incentive if you gotta wake up early in the morning and go to exercise.
No, no,
Might as well.
no. My motivation purely comes from trying to improve my health, right? Both physical
Okay.
and mental. So I don't need
So
any
how was
external.
your first yoga class?
I was surprised at how much I was sweating. I didn't expect to sweat so much from yoga. I was very, very surprised by that.
Is this like your first ever
Yeah,
yoga class?
my
Like you've
first
never
ever
done?
time. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay. So what did they kind of go through in the first class?
The individual components of Surya Namaskar,
Hmm. Hmm.
like taking support of the wall and
Right.
the
Right.
mat and stretches and all of that, and
Hmm.
then combining it together to do Surya Namaskar.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and feels good. Like for a first session.
So the certain positions were really stretching my muscles, and that warmth from that felt really good.
Hmm.
Um, but of course, moving between positions was very tough.
Yeah.
All the fatness that I've
Yeah.
accumulated,
Yeah.
I need to kind of work my way around that. Um, so that was kind of not comfortable. The breathing was the hard part, right? Like I realized how weak my lungs are.
Interesting.
The breathing aspect of it really kind of was a wake up call.
Hmm.
But yeah, very good first session.
Insane. So I did like 3 years of yoga when I was in school.
Okay.
Yeah, and like as you said, breathing. That my it was my PD teacher from school who basically he knew yoga really well. So he was like, you know what, you guys come this. So it's like a bunch of kids only who did. Like everybody else went to play or something like that. I can't remember what the split was, but the bunch of us that were doing yoga was like it was great, dude. Like we used to go to this like hall and like just sit and meditate, and of course Surya Namaskara and get on with the asanas. And I remember like by the end of the third year we were doing like really complicated stuff, right? Like I was almost there in being able to do that chakrasana from the
I,
standing position.
I used to be able to do that, but I've never done yoga, right? It was like
Yeah.
I was dancing in school,
Oh
and
yeah.
then you had that flexibility and you could do that.
Correct. Yeah, and like, but I still like in the mornings when I do whatever exercise, it's like it's a mix of yoga and like Western, I think, exercise or like whatever you call that, like push-ups and stuff like that. But like, I really think like yoga is great, like, right? Like, you can,
So my thinking is that I'm gradually ramping up to better health, right? So when I was 100 kilos, I knew that I cannot do any exercise, at that point. Um, the first thing was intermittent fasting, just having black coffee in the morning, and then waiting till lunch to actually have a meal. That got me from 100 to about 80. And then I started doing like walks, for 3 months. Every day morning, 6 o'clock, I'm out of the house, go for a walk, come back. Uh, but I didn't want to jump from a walk to gym.
right.
Something told me that is not a good idea, right? And especially with COVID and all going around, the number of people who are like gymming without a cause, they kind of run into heart issues, right? So I
Right,
was like,
right.
I need a much more gradual ramp into hitting the gym. So I thought yoga would be that right path to kind of go down.
Yeah, everyone always says this, but I really don't think it is. Like, if you start, I think 6 months in, you'll probably not want to go to the gym, is my take. Especially if you do it, follow up and like really do it, because yoga in itself is so rich in terms of what it can do for you. Uh, like, there's a basic idea of putting, like, I feel like yoga in its simplest understanding is like putting form of like developing muscle memory for your muscles and just stretching them out to like their limits, and then kind of relaxing and then stretching and relaxing, and that cycle kind of helps. It does a lot for your body, right? Like I when I went into yoga, it was like, yeah, whatever, right? I remember, yeah, now I remember. It was marching or yoga, and I was like, no brainer, right? Like, I don't want to march on the terrace of my school for like an hour. I'd go sit in the school room and like meditate rather, right? Like, so yeah, I did the yoga thing and went in as a skeptic, but like kept an open mind, and it really like I could physically feel a lot of good things happening. And it was just that, you stretch your body into a certain posture which pushes your muscles into an extreme pose of some sort. You hold it and then you come back to the rest pose. And basically you're just like pushing your body's boundaries a little by little by little. And like by the time you know it, you're like really flexible, like things are taking shape, right? Like all the things you thought you would have to go to the gym to do, you're kind of doing it through yoga itself, right? Like, I guess the few things that the gym adds on is like, I think cardio is one thing that yoga doesn't like have too much of. I don't know, I don't remember too clearly. So it really helps if you've been a smoker or something for a long time and you want to bring your your stamina back up. Cardio is like really good, really important. And the other thing with gym is like if you want to gain muscle mass or something, it kind of helps. I don't know if yoga has uh, muscle gain, muscle loss, weight loss kind of things going on
Yeah.
for it.
So that's the aspect I'm going for it. Like obviously I don't want to become a beefcake, but for me it's like there needs to be some amount of resistance training, right? Like some weights, and I don't think yoga has that. But the only reason I want to do yoga is because the last time I did it as a teenager, going to a gym, I was so stiff I couldn't wash my ass, right? Like I don't want that to happen again.
Got it, got it.
So I want to be really flexible and then do some resistance training to kind of
Yeah.
build in that.
Yoga will do everything for your strength, core strength training. That stuff is really good at, right? Like and I think the other thing I really like about yoga is the meditation and the breathing focus, right? Like that thing still sticks in my head. Like, I can still hear my PT teacher going, focus on your breathing, and like it's so important. Like like literally there are people out there who don't know how to breathe, right?
Yeah, I'm actually one of them, right? Like, I think I have some form of sleep apnea. When I go out for a walk, also, I'm constantly thinking about, okay, don't breathe through your mouth, breathe through your nose,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
all of those things. So, I relate to when you say that, a lot of people don't know how to do it properly.
Yeah, yoga is great for that.
But the
Create.
one thing which irks me is, and I'm trying to not be a rebel without a cause. They've kind of mixed it up with, religion in some sense, because I was asked to chant before and after. I was like, okay, I'll do it because I want to learn, not the chant per se, but the asanas. But like it was just irritating me so much.
What
Like
did
I
they
was,
make you chant?
again, I don't know what those things are.
Yeah, but like, do you
No,
recall the first few phrases or something
well,
like
it
that?
starts with Om and then a bunch of things, but like that made me really uncomfortable.
So the few chants that are there around yoga, it actually helps. The early chant and the closing chant, it's designed in such a way to kind of bring your breathing into a certain rhythm. The words and syllables being Sanskrit could be throwing you off, that it's more religious and things like that, which I get. I'm not saying that's the great thing about yoga, no, not at all. But I do understand that there are specific reasons for the before starting chant and the after starting chant, because I also remember doing it. I also remember feeling, oh, what is this religious bias that's kind of seeping into this form of exercise kind of thing. But it's more traditionally rooted, which is fine. Uh, but I see there is a purpose for it. I see that it is also like a communal thing, right? Like all of you kind of get together in that space and you chant together, and like it really helps in bringing people into that space, grounding you, and then taking you on for that. So I think even if you take it from very simple Pavlovian methodology, you might not need to chant, but the chant is probably doing something for your breathing and circulation. But it's more to, I'm starting this activity, I'm closing this activity. And as you do it, it's more conditioning, that when you chant that before you start your yoga, it's gonna help you like focus in on that thing. Uh, I set up these rituals for any new projects that I do. Like like I, this is how I control my distracted head, right? Like especially if it's a long thing. Like I remember when I was writing the novel, right? Like I had an album and a ritual to get started into that writing zone. So it was like these 2 3 things that I would do, and that would help me like open that Word document and just go for it, right? Like I don't need to like sit down and like what was that, like none of that. Like put this album on, get this juice, get started, right? Like
Oh, this was
uh,
something interesting. Towards the end, I was asked to close my eyes and focus on my breathing. And uh, there was some audio being played, and it was broken and it was distracting. I thought it was a test, so I just kept my eyes closed and I just kept continue to focus on my breathing. But like I didn't bother to ask after, like what was those noises, right? It seemed like, like you've got a very slow internet connection and you're listening to some mantra. Like it will play a little bit, crackle and then stop, and play and crackle and stop.
okay.
And it was weird. I was like, huh, what's going on? But like I was instructed to not open my eyes and focus on my breathing, right? So I just did that. But yeah, very interesting.
I have no idea. I'm guessing it was probably some mantra that was being played,
Huh.
and like maybe the noise cancellation on the laptop or something that is like causing the
Possible.
crackling to happen. But I don't think that was a very intentional thing.
Got it. Got it.
A lot of these practices are all very um, ritualistic, and like if you dig into what rituals really are, there is a lot of power in setting up your own rituals for different things. Uh, and they are also very communal activities, so to kind of zone everyone into the same mindset and things like that, all of this really helps. uh, yeah, it's when you start putting in your own, like whoever the guru is or the yogi or yogini is like putting in their cultural religious biases into those things, is when things start getting
Yeah. Apart
culty.
from the chant, it was just like focus on technique and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it was fine.
Yeah, I
What is
mean, I think this is the thing with like any learning, like learning from someone, their bias is going to seep in at some point, right? Like,
Yeah.
and
And this is the thing I was thinking about, right? Like, this is the first time in my life that I'm being coached. So, at least in my professional career, I have mostly been self taught
yeah.
with good mentorship, right? So, I've always been mentored in a sense. This is the first time I'm actually not choosing to self learn and get coached by someone. And I think that will be the case with the gym as well, right? Like I would not be confident to read about it and go and try it out. I would want some coaching to be there. So very interesting experience for me, like, you know.
Damn cool. I'm also in a similar space. I've been trying to look for a piano teacher
Okay.
because all my music is just literally me just pressing a bunch of things and like whatever sounds nice, right? Like,
Right.
and then you figure out a pattern between the sounds that sounds nice, and then you call it a riff and move on with life. But like I'm getting to the point where I'm like I want to do jazz, and I'm like I don't know how to jazz, and so so I was like okay, let me catch somebody who does jazz, and like I can be like pick their brains and like yeah. So then I did find this Goa Jazz Academy guys. Seem like sweet people. So I'm gonna go check out what they have to offer. The one thing I'm really wary about, and this happens a lot in music especially, um, and I don't know if it's an India thing or like it's a Asia thing or it's just generally the global South kind of a thing. But like we have this thing of learning through imitation, which is good till a point, right? Like to to learn music, it's always good to learn songs and things like that. But I don't think you can do that with jazz. It's such the fundamentals of jazz is you are virtuoso enough or you know enough about the complexities of things that you are able to now improvise at will while playing with other musicians. So it's more conversational, more improvisational. Um, so I know that this tendency to copy note to note happens, and then like we seek perfection in that copying note to note, and like you're trying to bend exactly like Miles Davis or like get that thing. But I don't think that's completely stripping off the essence of jazz, right? Like that's the opposite of what Miles Davis wanted to do. Like there's this brilliant like opening for all his albums, right? Like for with the song "So What," the track "So What," and he says he literally gave sheet music to his fellow band members, and it was just the root chords, right? He didn't say play this pattern, right? It wasn't like a Metallica. This is what Enter Sandman riff sounds like. No riff, just play in E minor, right? Just something like that. And he's like, I gave them that freedom so that the bass player and the drummer could innovate and come up with something, right? Like which is so unique and so in the moment almost, right? Like, and you can't go ahead and copy that note to note. It just does not make sense, right? Like you need to take the fundamental and make it your own in some way, right? Like, so that's the one thing I'm wary about when like picking gurus or teachers or whatever it is, which is I've had a struggle so far. Like I've always gotten to a point where there is a saturation and I'm like, okay, this guy's talking bullshit now. Like, I don't want to learn this anymore.
Would you consider yourself coachable or not coachable?
It's a great question. I think the way I want to put it is that I have a very low threshold bullshit meter.
Okay.
Like intuitively I can sense someone bullshitting very quickly, and it like specifically irks me when I'm there to learn from them and they're going down this tangent, right? Like I love being like I love learning, right? Like and it's just that like I don't like people teaching me through rigid structures, but like if you can explain why that is needed. Like, I wish my guitar teacher would say muscle memory. Such a simple concept, right? Like no, you all guitar you do 10,000 hours of the, like it doesn't make sense, right? Like I know I have to get the finger exercises, I know I have to practice that, and I know that's the most painful part of picking up that specific instrument. Somebody just say muscle memory, the more you do it, the more your like fingers get accustomed to that pressure and the pattern and things like that. Nobody did. Like, why did it take me 8-10 years to figure out that that's why we do like finger exercises?
Yeah.
So I guess
Talking about all this, it brings me to my experience with you, right? Like you taught me the first riff of Nothing Else Matters. I got it tattooed on my neck. I'm not even sure that the sheet music is right? Like I just googled it and got it done on a whim, right?
Yeah.
But you know this is my equivalent of those tramp stamps that you write in like Japanese or Chinese or whatever, right? And you got lost in translation. It meant
Yeah.
something completely different.
Yeah. No, but like the Nothing Else Matters riff is like it's just all open strings.
Yeah.
So there's like, I mean, you'll like the chances upon a monkey finding it by mistake is like really high, and I think that's in essence the origin story of that song. Like there's a ton of reels about this. Just
Yeah?
like there's so many reels about like James Hetfield just like sitting casually bored and just like and Kirk Hammett going that whatever you're playing keep playing.
Yeah. But this is something I'm truly excited about. I don't know when I will kind of prioritize it and get it done. But learning music and being able to kind of like the experience you've had over the past 10 years, right? Just playing whatever you feel like.
Yeah, so let me give you the quickest lesson, and I think you should do this every day for 10 minutes. I think you can make 10 minutes. Can you like
Of course.
yeah, 10 minutes, just 10 minutes. Most people will tell you like you need to spend an hour every day on music. No, when you start with the least amount of effort you can put, 5 to 10 minutes, right? And this is all you do, right? Like, so, I mean, you know the basics. These are the frets, right? Just put your hand in a 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Like you just need to cover 4 frets, right? Start here. This is the basic. And then just go 1, 2, 3, 4. Next string. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Got it. So I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
I was using Guitar Tuner and it was kind of encouraging me to hold close to the fret line.
Yeah. So you're thinking about the details of it, right? Don't bother. The only thing that you need to focus on is, and like that's a micro tonality, and right now, your ears aren't trained to even notice the difference. Yes, it helps to like kind of press down as close to the fret as possible.
Would you do it before or after? Like, where would you hold it near the fret
So
line?
if so basically the idea is tension of a string, right? Like so when the string you apply tension in that position, right? You're closest to this fret, so that you get the most tension over there, right? Also depends on how you tune, because if you tune a little looser, then you probably get somewhere here, right? But the ideal tuning, you just want to hold here and here and here, closest to the end of the fret, basically.
Got it. Understood.
Yeah, but the point of this exercise is not about the technicality of music at all. It's more to get your fingers comfortable with the instrument.
Yeah, this is why I'm asking, because if I'm holding it in the middle, right, and then there's a gap, right, so I'm trying to squeeze hard to make the string touch the fretboard.
Yeah, you need to like, it'll take some time. The thing you need to focus on first day, don't even bother going all the way and all that. Like don't bother with speed or any of that. The focus needs to be you being able to push down on the string and get the sound. So even if you do it like really slow and just take one note at a time and let it really ring out, right? That's also great. But like do it, switch off all the music or audio distractions that you can have and just pay attention to the note that you're hearing. Tip is you can sing along with it, so you can get your voice also trained alongside.
What is this?
You can just go and you're basically vocal training yourself as you do guitar training.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I never did, so like Can't sing. Never. Yeah.
No, I mean, even I don't want to sing, but just the idea that you can. This brings me to another question. Can you tune without an app? Like you
No.
can just by
No.
ear, can you tune?
No.
No?
No. No.
Like what does it take
I
to get
can't
to that?
tune. It's this, right? It's just basically ear training and like being able to register. Because uh, at the end of the day, every note is just going up the frequency order, right? Like, so it's just being able to recognize that each frequency of sound. Uh, if we had a culture where as infants we are exposed to music and music theory and like learning music, it would be like this for us, because in those formative years is when like maximum osmosis happening of all senses, right? Like, so which is why you see these prodigal musicians are usually like 4 years old, 3 years old, and like so young. It's because there's no inhibitions, right? Like they're able to their hearing is so opened out that they can hear every note there is and able to identify it, and then just because they have access to a piano or guitar or whatever it is, they just like let loose on it. Fingers are forming, brain is forming, ears are forming, sensation is just forming. So easy to learn things at that time. And as Indian parents, I think they do the reverse, right? They kind of shelter us into not doing anything.
Yeah. No, but it's very interesting because I'm now picking it up at a time when I can sense that my ability to learn things is diminishing, right? So as I'm hitting that 35-year mark, I'm realizing that, the ease with which I absorbed information, processed it, and was able to utilize that information is not the same.
It's not there. Yeah, it's not the same at all. Like I
Like,
totally get people complaining about kids these days, kind of a thing, right? Uh, like I remember 10 years ago, the band time. There was this like I used to look up to the older musicians, and I go hang out with them and just pick up from osmosis, like basically. So and their common complaint used to be like, man, I need to figure out how to install a plugin and then use it, right? Like, but for somebody who's like 10 years younger to me, they're born with the internet, right? Like, and for them this is second. They don't spend 45 minutes finding, downloading, cracking and installing and then using a plugin. For them all of that process takes like 3 minutes, right? Whereas for me it takes so long, and then I have to go and sit and look through the manual on how to use it. But for most of the younger kids, it's so intuitive, like they just like do it on the fly, and that's a competitive advantage. And I'm like, yeah, loser, go learn. Like that used to be my response, but now I know what that feels like, right? Like that,
yeah.
unable to pick up something that quickly.
No, and it goes back to even my industry, right? Like I used to always wonder why, they come and hire engineers en masse in IT services, right? And then they keep throwing people out. It is this, right? Like if you don't have certain skill sets, after a point, you're not able to absorb and transform information at that same speed, and you're pretty much useless to the organization, right?
Unless you can manage people.
Manage people is one thing, problem solving is another. Like there are many other skill sets which you can pick up and you'll continue to be, relevant, right? But if it is just boiling down to can you absorb information, process it and transform it really quickly, that game ends in like, 10 years, right? Like I'm like, wow.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the one place it doesn't happen as frequently is in the creative industry. It's the reverse. Like when you're a fresher designer, copywriter, illustrator, whatever it is, right? Like uh, you come in with so many ingenious ideas, and like the creativity is at 100%, but your skill is below average. Your ability to translate is below average. Your ability to deliver good finished product is like below average, right? Mm, and it takes like almost 10 years before you get to that point where you are totally able to uh, like I think I'm a fast designer today. I was never not a fast designer earlier, and it's because of going through that process over and over again, like collecting a brief, researching it, breaking it down, building on top of it, and then finally coming out with something, so an outcome that, and also realizing what people's reactions to certain things mean. As an artist, you can brush off everybody's reactions under the carpet and be like, I don't like any of the reactions. This is my expression, take it or leave it. But as a designer, you don't have that choice. You are looking to make something that a lot of like the masses find intuitive and useful and like easy to use at the same time. So you need to accept feedback. You need to go down and break down your thoughts in relation to that feedback and actually come out with a whole new solution, uh, which is very fascinating process, and that takes a lot of curing and tuning, and like it takes time to get to that point where you can deliver finished good quality products like in short intervals of time. The most important thing being like you're able to translate what people are telling you or what your thoughts are about it, and it takes so long. So I see like senior designers and creative directors are the people who you can't get there early. It's not possible. You need to have tried and failed so much, right? Like it's this constant thing of like just fail, and few of them work, and then you sit down and take stock of why they worked and how you were able to crack it. And uh, yeah, it takes so much longer, right? And which is why you see all the great artists. You always have older photos of them because they hit their popularity at that age, because the skill finally caught up to their imagination and their creativity, and after that it it's still going on, right? Like yeah, there's no end to it. Like you can always become a better sculptor, you can always become a better illustrator, you can always find new techniques to incorporate. And I see this so much. Friends of mine and like people who have hired to work on used to have like such rigid ideas about creativity. What they thought was their style was actually limiting themselves, right? Like until they went and found another mentor or a coach or went for a workshop on some technique, and they're like, oh, I can incorporate that now. But like to incorporate that, I need to kind of let go of this little homestead that I've built for myself with my techniques, and like then they let go of it, and you see the evolution happen, or you see the stagnation also happen, right? Like people are not willing to let go of it, saying this is my style, this is what I'm going to do, and stick by it. Don't grow, and they plateau out, and they just remain there. And by grow and like plateau and all, I'm just talking about purely skill, right? Like only the skill level, not anything else connected to it, right?
Yeah. But I want to use this as a segue to go back to something you had mentioned earlier, right, about imitation. And a lot of this to me is exactly that, right? Like let's take a coding for example. A lot of my coding is influenced by the code that I read while I was writing code, right? I'm sure what you're alluding to from a design perspective is also similar, right? Like someone has developed their own style based on the other styles that they have absorbed, and now they're very kind of insecure about their style, right? They don't want to let go of it, right? They don't want to evolve, but
Okay.
subconsciously it's always happening, right? So, for example, this podcast, right? For the first time, I'm seeing myself recorded. I've never heard myself. I've never seen myself talking, right? And in my head, it's always been that okay, I have an identity. This is my style. This is how I do it. But when I watch myself, I can actually see the styles I've picked up from other people, right? People I've worked very closely with over a long period of time, how their style has kind of been blended into my style. and that really surprised me, right? Like I was always conscious about it from a coding perspective. I knew that the more I'm reading, the more I'm getting influenced, and the more I'm evolving in my style. But like verbally and this is the first time I'm kind of experiencing that. Like proof watching the podcast, I was like, what? I didn't realize this about myself.
Like, what does that feel like though? Like in the sense of like when you were watching yourself again. Okay, tell me a moment like you really noticed, and whose influence, if you want to mention names, like.
Yeah, so certain mannerisms or certain styles of articulating things, like for example, Aditya Rao, right? I worked a good 2 years with him, and some very small aspects of that interaction style I can see has kind of crept into my style as well. People like Sridhar, people like Satyan, people who I worked closely with for a long period of time, right? I can see those
Those
small details.
influences,
Yeah, that the very slight shade and touch.
Yeah,
and
but
it's
like.
and it's so amazing that I have never consciously actually thought about it, saying that I like this, I want it for myself. My brain somewhere in some subconscious layer has decided, incorporated it, and deployed it, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. अच्छा use करो.
yeah.
Like, yeah. No, I was on uh, one of the first venture partner calls with like the Seed Scout guys, and there was this guy who had logged in from, can't even remember, Illinois or something like that. And he was like peaceful and quiet throughout the call. And then at the 35-40 minute mark, he just like put his hand up on the call, and they were like, okay, what do you have to say? And he's like, I like what you guys are doing. And he just summarized everything. And then he said, this is my contribution. He gave 3 points. And then he's like, I'm really sorry, but I got to check out. And everyone's like, what? Yeah, I got to check out from this call. And like, I just got other things to do. I got to check out. So thank you. I'll catch you guys at the next call. I just like left. And everyone like, and didn't even like wait for people to say, okay, bye, or like anything. It's just like, I got to check out. Like, I'll catch you guys. Chuck. It's gone. And Matt, the guy, the founder of Seed Scout, he was just like, that was so cool. Like, I'm going to use that. I'm just going to say I got to check out and just log off, right? Like, I think we do this. It's just like on different levels and scales.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
a thing that happens. But like imitation is what like I don't know if you've seen that 4-part thing on Vimeo. It's called Everything is a Remix.
Oh yes, you shared that with me. I
Yeah.
went through it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And like that's so freeing. And at the same, I've shared that with so many people. A lot of artists kind of it shuts them down because there's just so much disbelief in that idea, right? Like that everything is in some way a copy of something else, or it's just like an amalgamation of two ideas or something like that. But that's the natural evolutionary process, right? Like we take this from there, take that from there. This works better. Like move on with it, right? Like yeah, imitation's great to start learning, but like at some point you need to stop imitating very consciously. I used to do this a lot when I used to produce, was trying to be a music producer, sort of a thing, that I'd stopped listening to other people's music, or especially if a band came in for a recording and they're like, we want to sound like these guys, never listening to any of those references that they send me, right? Like because I have a certain ear, I have a certain mind, and I've heard you guys, right? Or I came to catch you guys live at your show where your audience really loved you, and that's what they got. And when I'm there and I'm like listening and picking up things that I think need to be amplified or like cut down or like subdued or like given highlight, put on the spotlight. I want to use my head and my creativity to kind of achieve that. If you come and give me a reference and say I want to sound exactly like this, it's not that I can't achieve it, it's that I don't want to achieve something which has already been made. Like, where is the pushing the boundary, right? Like, okay, great. You wanted to sound like Mogwai, you sounded like Mogwai, but you're from Bangalore, India, with limitation with tech and like creativity. You come with your own cultural influences. You're throwing in these modes that like Mogwai doesn't do because they don't understand it, but it's so natural for somebody from India who's heard, like, unfortunately or fortunately, been like forced to listen to ragas and like suprabhata and all these things. It's there, it's culturally there, and why should I not pick that up and like highlight it for you, right? Like, and to a certain point, it's I will this I most likely I would have heard the reference already at some point, but just not in the context of I need to refer to this to like make this band sound like this. It's more like I've heard them. Now I'm going to make something else with this band, right? Like I'm going to make them sound like them, right? And really highlight their features and their characteristics in that.
Oh, by
But
the way, this is a good segue into something else that has been bothering me. Ever since I've started, fiddling around with the guitar, I am realizing that almost all of the music that I listen to is not music. Like it's some weird distortion of music, right? Like
okay,
you cannot replicate it with any instrument.
what do you mean? Like what do you listen to that cannot be replicated?
For example, most of the Haryanvi, Punjabi songs, right? Like that entire belt, whatever I hear, right? I don't think you can play an instrument to generate that sound.
Oh, okay. No, okay. So, there's two key things to music, right? Like there's like rhythm and there's melody. There's a lot of groove-based music, which focuses more on the beat, rather than beat and singing, probably, right? Like that than a melody or a hook or a riff that is catchy, right? Like. Uh, that stuff, see, it's not like the Haryanvi rap and like that scene. I'm guessing that's what you're referring to. They use synthesizers, right? Like they're using the same concepts of music, chords and notes and everything. It's just the sound that you're hearing is a very synthesized sound. It's like they've designed it to sound like that. It comes down to a little bit of sound design. You kind of like feel like, oh, okay, this sounds like a truck and a BMW and a combine harvester and the rain all going together. And I like those sounds because that's what I grew up with. I want to take those sounds and play like notes and chords to kind of make it fit. But the essence of the genre itself is more based on beat and singing, right? Like it's got very little to do with that.
Okay,
Melodic.
let me give you a concrete example. Divine, right?
Hmm.
He came out with a song called Sitara on his latest album, right? And it is right up my alley, right? Like extremely heavy production of music. Like I don't think they could have performed it live, right? But they actually did. So when they released the track, there was no music video. When they came out with the music video, they went like live,
Is
right?
this Sitara featuring Jonita Gandhi?
Yeah. So I want you to listen to the one without the video and the one with the video, right?
Yeah.
So the video is like a live recording of it,
Okay.
and everything from her voice to the music
So wait, which
notes.
one do you want me to?
Uh,
The one below?
the below is the studio recording, and the one
Okay.
above is like a live performance, right?
So which one do you want me to check out?
Both, right? First the studio and then the live.
Divine. Junita.
By the way, this is the first time I'm listening to this. I've not heard this before.
Yeah.
जहाँ मिले वो बोले सितारा ठीक लगता है लड़का वारा समझे ना क्या है यारा प्यार सही में ये सही में न जाना जहाँ चले वो बोले सितारा ठीक लगता है लड़का वारा समझे ना क्या है यारा प्यार सही में ये सही में न जाना
पहली नजर में लगती परी वो और नस में सुनामी और सामने जो खड़ी वो दिल में वो दौड़ती दिमाग में वो
So,
Can you switch?
like right off,
Huh.
I don't know if you get like copyright tagged or whatever it is. It's okay. But like, see, there is a lot that's going on which is like influenced by funk. So you can, if you can hear that, the stabs at the back, right? That there's like a lot of funk bass line. It's probably played on a piano roll or a keyboard of some sort. But there is movement there. There is chords moving over there. And if you can pick up those root notes, you will be able to play guitar chords along with it at least, which kind of match. So it's not like there isn't, or you're not there yet. Let's just put it that way.
But go watch the next, the live recording, right?
Okay.
So it sounds very different, including her voice.
Yeah, you have a rearrangement of it, right? So you have a guitar, you have bass. Or the classic Terry sound. I get what you mean, and this is the standard debate on this thing, right? Analog versus electronic, and this is the great, should we use computers in music or not? Kind of. I just think it's two different showcases, right? Like it's the studio recording version is meant to be played on radio and like streaming services and things like that. So they give it that polish. When you go into the studio, it's like there's no time limit. You can take your time to really craft that sound and really like build something, or like make your masterpiece in some sense, right? Like, so each sound, the vocal notes are all cleaned up, and like only perfection is kind of delivered in some sense. Whereas when you put this analog spin on it, there's only that much effecting that you can do for it to feel natural. When you're playing with real instruments, you might as well like just jam with them. And I like this. I really like that there is these two versions of the same song, right? One is such a studio heavy production, and the other is this is me and my band just like jamming out to this song, right? Like,
but you know, the crazy thing is my emotional experience with all of this, right? So the album dropped, I went and played this song, I loved it, I played it on loop. It's something that I was obsessed with. And then, of course, you know, time went by, listened to other music, blah, blah, blah. Suddenly this drops. The first time I hear it, I'm completely jarred by it, right? Like, I hate it.
which like, the analog version, the live version, rather.
Yeah. And then, you know, you and me were talking about how that now that I've got a good music system, how I should go back and listen to music, right? So I did the same thing. I went back and I played the live session on my new system. And now I've actually fallen in love with the song, her voice, and now I can't go back and listen to the studio produced one. It's like this crazy emotional experience which I've had with this track.
Yeah, that happens all the time. Just all the time. But like I feel like they're both versions for different moods. Like you don't need to like either or not like one over the other. There's no competition. Like I think that's the main thing that we need to get into our heads about music or art in general, that you don't pit these two things against each other. It's just meant for different
so then
tastes.
what would you say to people who kind of shit on artists who kind of lip sync on stage, right? Like that was the big
go on.
That was the big debate with Justin Bieber coming to India, right? That you pay so much of money to come see a guy lip sync on stage because
that's not what you're going to watch Justin Bieber for. You're not going to watch artistry, right? Like most people are going to watch Justin Bieber are fans of him and his personality and like all of that. it's commercial music, man. Like, and that kid got it before anybody else, and like, and he was able to identify that formula, put things out there that made him viral or made him like that popular, and yeah, I think there's only that much of music fans for Bieber. They're like, I don't think a lot of people associate with the music, but I don't think they're fans of his music as much as they're fans of him and what he does and his personality. And like the fantasy of being Bieber is more appealing than his music in some sense. And I think that's the thing with like most pop celebrities, pop stars, and like everyone wants to be with Christina Aguilera in the 90s, right? Like because she was hot and she had this lifestyle and she could wear these clothes and like get on stage and do these cool moves that I want to do. I can't do it. I can't afford to do it because I need to go get a job. That's what people are going to go catch. Anand said,
You touched upon something so insane, and this is something that I've been dealing with, right? Like at the start of this conversation, you asked me whether it was what hot yoga. What is that?
yeah, Hoga.
Hoga, right? The thing I'm realizing right now is that when I feel attracted to someone, it's essentially me just saying that, hey, I really envy this person for what they are doing, and I want to replicate it in some way, right? I'm not actually, like for example, just let's throw a crazy example, right? Hrithik Roshan, when he did his step, right? Like at that point in my mind, I felt like, oh my god, I loved Hrithik Roshan. But what was internally happening is that I want to see myself do those dance moves, in some way, right? And look that cool or whatever, right? But
And
you kind
hence,
huh?
and by looking cool,
I don't know where you're going with that.
people will like me.
Sure, of course. Right?
Yeah.
But
Vanity.
vanity, of course. I'm so aware of my vanity right now.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's like another
Yeah,
level,
yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
But this is something that I'm realizing. Like a lot of the people I follow, which I earlier used to think I really like them. I'm like, no, I don't like them. I'm jealous of them. I want to be them, right? That's the whole experience that I'm having, especially on social media.
Yeah, I
And,
mean,
and I've reached that saturation point where I'm like, I cannot be jealous of any more people, right? I cannot, I don't have the time to become like a bodybuilder, an athlete, dancer, singer. Like, I don't have the time.
I'm sure there's a lot of like time and dedication they put into becoming
Yeah.
right? Like, and it's like some weird obsession that they have with it.
Yeah.
A lot of times it starts from this point, right? Like the one thing I don't like hating on people's vanity at all because it's such a great motivator, right? Like
Absolutely.
like I want to be that, right? And like for me also, it was like I saw bands on MTV, didn't change anything, didn't do anything for me from I need to learn and become a better musician perspective. I went to the first shitty Battle of the Bands in Bangalore, and I was like, if that monkey can do it, I want to do it. That's it, right? Like and that's where the journey started, right? Like, and I remember going up to one of the bands and saying, you know what, next year I'm going to be playing next to you. And he said, do it, man. Like, just go for it, right? I want to see more bands coming up, so like, just go do it. Took me 2 years, but like I got there, and 3 years later, that festival was no more. So such is life, is what you discover. But that vanity is a great motivational factor, right? Especially when you see some other guy going like, that's it, he can do it, he's doing it, I'll do it, like, I'll be better, right? Like,
Yeah.
And this works so well in whatever realm you're in. Like even startup guys, right? Like dude's going after WordPress, right? One guy I know. I'm like, why? Like, and then it clicked, and it's like, he's like, they're all doing it wrong. That's what's running in his head, right? Like, and it starts with jealousies, right? Like it's like, why is WordPress still a thing? Why are people still using it? It's so horrible. It's like, okay, fine, I'll make something which is better than WordPress and doesn't have, it's not as clunky and like all of that.
I want to kind of segue into something. So you had introduced me to Food Darzi, right?
Ah,
So I took the subscription and all that. They added me to one WhatsApp group, and there is a operations person and a nutritionist on that group, right? So the ops guy's role there is to make sure that did the food come on time,
Right.
support you with anything, right? The nutritionist, they're trying to pitch that whole health angle and all
Yeah,
of that, right? So a lot of the times, I'm sure they go into a meeting, they come up with some cookie cutter stuff, and then they come and
Yeah.
kind of experiment on me, right?
Yeah.
So one of the days, this nutritionist wrote that something motivational, right, to the effect of I love myself, I care for myself, whatever, right, and I will do well, I will have a good diet, and my response to that is I'm a narcissist. I am obsessed with myself. And then she just like burst out laughing. There's like on ha 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 like throughout that. But yeah, I'm in this weird space now where I've completely identified this about myself, and I'm completely unapologetic about it, right? Like
But
I'm
that you focus on yourself.
yeah.
That doesn't
Like-
make you a narcissist.
No. I'm literally obsessed with myself, PK. Like
That doesn't make you a narcissist. See, I try to have this conversation. Is such a difficult conversation to have with anybody, right? Like the ideology itself is so weird, and like I talk about the virtue of selfishness, right? Like a lot of people have prophesized philanthropy and like selflessness and give culture and all of that, right? I love give culture. Give culture is epic. Philanthropy is shady as fuck. Okay, but like I really feel like there is a greater power in like being selfish, and being selfish again, like throwing words like narcissism or depression when you're just sad or low, like is like it defiles the word narcissism and like
okay, so
depression.
what characteristics would I have to exhibit for you to call me a narcissist?
No, man, you must actively. There's people who want others to lose in order for them to win, right? Like that is narcissism level. So you're causing other people. You
I've been
impact
there.
pain and hurt on other people on a regular, constant basis. It's like telling people to show up somewhere and then not going there intentionally so that you can go and do something that they would have used that time to do. Like that. That's like, like.
So you're describing some shady shit, but like for example, like I love MMA and boxing and all that, right? Like that to me like is you're trying to inflict pain on other people, like you're trying to
No,
compete
that's a
with.
sport. That's different. Like martial art, it's an art form more. Like again, martial arts, like uh, being exposed a little to martial arts in school, and then like meeting someone like Ashish who's trained like hundreds of people in martial arts. You start to realize that that's an art form, and people who watch MMA and WWE and like all these aggressive
Hey,
sports.
don't throw WWE in with like.
I'm bucketing a lot of things into. I'm calling it aggressive sports, okay?
Got
Like
it.
bucket of. I know WWE is more entertainment, less sport, but like those people still need to like work on their physique and like be able to do those moves and stuff. So my whole point is, a lot of people who watch this are people who will in their head think, oh, I can take people down in a fight, right? Like they'll have these kind of conversations also. You think you can take that guy down? And I'm like, that thought has never crossed my mind, right? Like, and if you actually speak to somebody who's like whatever black belt or black belt den 3 or like things like that, they'll be like, I would never take someone down. I would never initiate a fight. I would not do that, right? Like, because there is a respect for their own body. There is a respect for the other person's well-being in some sense. And they know that there's a difference between attack and defense. And like at any given point of time, the reason that they're learning the art form is for self-preservation and self-defense. That's not narcissism at all. That's not.
No, so I listen to a lot of Iron Mike Tyson's podcast, right? And when he talks about his mentality going into a fight, right? It is just a shade short of terrorism, right? Like you're literally saying, I'm going to
Yeah,
take this
but like
guy,
the guy
I'm
also
going to
does
drown
like.
him and bring him back, and then drown him again and bring him back and take him deep and like take his soul away, right? Like
No,
emasculate the
see,
guy.
I feel like that's part of the job. If you're going to be the best uh, boxing champion out there, you need that mentality to succeed and win that crowning glory, right? Uh, if you're in it to go and get fit and feel better about yourself, you don't need that mindset. You don't need, like, nobody needs to approach life with that mindset. Okay, you don't need to go terrorize people to win, right? In fact, the one, like, bro, when I started LNM, I had this mentality that I want to shut other agencies down in Bangalore, and I'll be the, like, you get what I mean? It's not logical. It's not helpful in any which way. When I got calls from other agencies who wanted to pass on a client, or like who wanted to learn about a client, I used to take them with such suspicion and like, I don't know what is this person doing? Like, will they? And there was really nothing for them to steal, right? Like, it's not like I like sitting on a dragon's hoard of gold that they could like come and take away or something like that. I had nothing, and it was like this like weird, just this. People told me you need to compete, and I was like, okay, I'll compete, and it put me in this mindset, and I went after this. Oh, I need to be an asshole to survive in this world and all of that, and over the years drastically changed my mindset to I'm going to help people. Okay, without really, like the real give culture, right? I'm going to selfishly help people. I'm going to selfishly give away knowledge, right? Like, and the reason is not from, oh, they'll come to me at some point for business, right? It's not that. It's that I'm not using it right now. You use it.
This is so interesting because
And that giving away of any idea, suggestion, knowledge, whatever it is, right? Like, it is very rewarding internally. Like, it's just like it makes me happy, and I give away because like from a very selfish place, right? Like, it genuinely makes me happy to just help someone without expecting anything from them. I don't care if something comes well and good, but like it's. And I'm talking about the virtue of selfishness from that angle, right? Not this. I don't want to destroy people. I want people to be like nice and like peaceful and like live a nice life and like all of that. Like, if all of us are just competing with each other, is when you have like weird shit going on, right? Like wars and stuff like that. Like,
I think the helicopter is telling us to kind of carry it because we cannot get
yeah.
the air.
But hang
I
on,
think
like
I think
it's a
Goa has this rhythm of things that happen which kind of makes you follow a certain pattern, right? Last time it was the rain, now it's this.
no, today it rained before the podcast. It already rained, so it's like I'm feeling sticky and humid. Yeah, no, there's a helicopter service in Goa. You can land in the airport and take a helicopter to your resort.
Seriously,
Yeah.
like any resort.
I think there are certain zones which have like places to land.
Wow. How much
Yeah.
does this cost?
It's like I'm not that vain. It's not like helping me.
But
By the way, book your bus. You're supposed to
Fine.
be here, like,
Yes.
and it's a long weekend, and like just like
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll book it right now.
yeah, do it right. Like,
Cool, done.
huh.
On that
So
note,
yeah,
can we connect?
yeah. So next week we're doing a live in-person podcast.
Oh, okay then.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
Super fun. All right.
Cool.
Cool beats. Yeah. No profit and no pakoda this time, but like a lot of health talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Take care,
Cheers,
man.
man. All right.